I went on a date last week. We spent 7 hours together and yeah, we're getting married.
If you look at a leader, you see that person working hard and going to bat for you and sticking up for you and doing all that kind of stuff. It inspires that reciprocation.
How some millennials have been accused of having entitled attitudes in comparison to the older generation. And there's a story that he mentioned which I could imagine happening.
Because it dawned on me, like, I was speaking to my wife last night when I was reading it. I said, wait a minute, we're millennials.
Yeah. I think the message for me is don't get caught up on your title.
Yeah, facts.
Like,
there you go.
You know, it's not about your title. It's not about being a CEO.
Yeah.
It's about being you as a person.
Yeah.
Welcome back to The Power of Pages. I go by Ty.
I'm Mr. Fly.
And we review books that ignite your mind,
elevate your life,
and drive your ambition. And this month we have Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Mr. Fly picked this book. Firstly, yeah, why did you pick it?
I picked it, I mean, Simon Sinek, I've watched a lot of his kind of interviews. I know he's done a few TED Talks and whatnot. He's got a very famous TED Talk about finding your why. That's how he first came onto my radar. We've got his book. We're going to review that at some point, definitely. But this book, I'm very, my position now within my organisation as a leader is something that's always interested me, leadership. I've been through sport, I've played through working at other jobs and working in other organisations. I've seen good leadership and I've seen poor leadership. So I don't want to be referred to as a poor leader, and I'm very interested in it. So this year especially, I thought, for this year of books, I definitely want to read a lot of books that are based around leadership so I can improve. And so this was, the title actually got me.
Okay.
Because I've got a few other ones that we're going to read, but this one, the title got me, so it intrigued me. And so yeah, man, I was excited to read it, and obviously we read it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that answered my question, because as you mentioned, he's got his famous book, Start With Why.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued why we went for this book and not Start With Why, but
no, I've done like, to Start With Why, it's on the list, and I know it's the top. The TED Talk that he gave is, I've watched it a good number of times, and I've even broken in talks that I've given or sessions that I've given, I've referred back to that TED Talk. So, but this was the answer is that I just gave you.
Yeah. In fact, so Simon Sinek, for those that don't know, he's got the third most watched of all time TED Talk called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And at the time of either writing the book, I think it had 80 million views at the time. So yeah, 8 million eyeballs have watched him.
Yeah.
But yeah, first impressions of the book.
It's a tricky one, man, because I had very high expectations.
Yeah.
I had very high expectations, and they were met at times and they were not met at times, if I'm honest. And it's kind of like, but what was the question? What was my first impressions? Yeah, no, but overall, it taught me a lot. What I like, because I'm interested in things like the chemicals that the brain releases. I'm very interested in that kind of stuff. But I'd never really retained the information when I read it. Everyone knows about it. I know, well, not everyone, but endorphins is one that I do remember most time. But I was really grateful for his breakdown of all the other ones, like oxytocin, serotonin, cortisol. And he actually described it in ways that I now can kind of go back and remember. And what the main, like, one thing I got, which I understand as a leader, is like, and I think it's a thread through the book, is that your job as the leader is to make sure that the chemicals of your staff are in the right place. Yeah. That's the main...
inspire those emotions.
To inspire those emotions and to make sure to keep some emotions low and to help bring other emotions out. Yeah. So that was like, it's like first impressions, what I got from it. What about yourself?
Okay. Yeah. At times, this book had me really hooked. At times, and at times, it didn't. But what you're talking about there, let's touch on that firstly, because the chapter I think is called EDSO, which stands for endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And he kind of talks about how those different hormones play a role in, the staff or the people that you interact with. So endorphins, the energy that we get from exercise. The dopamine is the hit that we get. The serotonin is the emotional, the joy that we feel. And the oxytocin is like the love and the connection from kind of like a short snippet. He goes into more detail in the book. But yeah, I enjoyed that section. Was there anything specifically that you took out of that? Because
I think it just made me realise it made me really understand people more. So I'm looking and I'm like, and even understanding myself more, as in, okay, this is making me feel this way. And, you know, sometimes you get that feeling in your stomach. We're not going to go into cortisol because it doesn't talk about it in this part, but, you know, like even that side of things, it's like, okay, if you're able to inspire these emotions or these chemicals from, you know, he refers to like serotonin as the leadership chemical. So that's, you know, something as a leader, the feeling you get when you perceive that people respect you. You know, if you've ever given a speech or you've done something where people are clapping for you, you feel proud, your body releases that. And this all goes back to, it goes back to like prehistoric times, the Homo sapien times, you know, it's come through evolution and whatnot, where this is how tribes, and this is what he describes in the book, how tribes stay together and there's always a leader, you know, there's leaders and whatnot, and you can't have one without the other. But you have to keep them all in balance. And where we are now as a society, which I agree with him, is we're unbalanced because dopamine, you know, through marketers, businesses, whoever you want to call it, have found a way to exploit, to increase dopamine levels to keep you hooked, and that's and that comes down to addiction.
Yeah.
You know, and not when you think of addiction, I don't know where your mind goes, but even addiction as in with your phone, addiction with, there obviously alcohol, there's whatever, you know, things like that, and it's a rush, but it's a fleeting rush. So this is stuff that I kind of already knew, but he went into a lot of detail about it, which I appreciated. It's like, okay, with your staff, you don't necessarily want to be using dopamine as the main incentive because it's going to take a lot to keep that high up, and they're always going to crash, you know. So that was
that was interesting chapter, how he framed the hormones and put that into the perspective of leadership and managing people.
Yes.
I quite like that. And yeah, to touch on dopamine, can be negative, alcohol, gambling, phone addiction.
To say the least.
And he mentions in the book, the bigger the goal, the more effort it requires, the more dopamine we typically get. And I can just think of this, you know, both you and I have competed in boxing, and I remember the first boxing match, that was probably the biggest high that I've ever had after anything, you know, that was so high. So it was just interesting to read about those, even though I know about them, it's just interesting to read about them in the book. Now, there were lots of examples of leadership traits and different companies who expressed good leadership skills and poor leadership skills. Were there any that you wanted to touch on?
I mean, we'll go back up. We've kind of gone down. I think that was chapter 8. We were talking about the chemicals. But chapter 2, employees are people too. And I think this is very much maybe the start of modern leadership, good leadership. And he talks about Bob Chapman, who was the CEO of a company, I think called Barry Weimer. And then they just kind of understood how to get the best out of their staff and how not to alienate different levels of staff, and understanding, like the chapter's called Employees Are People Too. So treating them as people, you know, and then to understand that if you want to get trust, you have to give trust. For example, you know, so little things I think he spoke about where, I can't remember what they do, but they, in the work office where they were in the workshop, they used to have locks on all the tools, for example. And then that basically says that we up above don't trust you down below. So then that affects, you know, what chemicals are you now inducing? You know, when you feel trusted, then you're gonna feel that you can trust them, X, Y, Z. So that was a good example of good leadership. That's just one example. And also, which was interesting, and I don't think I noted it down, but he talked about, I think the person who moved this over, he realised that he kept his teams in like groups of 150.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you can find that, so groups of 150. And what that meant is that was like the average size of tribes, you know, way back when. So that is the kind of natural way we can work in groups of 150. When it gets bigger, it starts to become unmanageable. And then you'll get cliques within cliques within cliques, you know. And then he, just by chance, started to, you know, he had 150, then they would open another factory, which is 150 community in that side. And I think you've seen because when organisations continue to grow, and growth is good obviously, but the negative side of it is that people then become sidetracked. There becomes hierarchies within the hierarchy, X, Y, Z, so it also has a lot of negatives. So what he kind of recommends is, if you are growing, maybe 150 is like that sweet spot.
I like that. He called it Dunbar's number.
Yes.
It's hard to manage relationships more than 150 people. And this was kind of his intuition of that number. There was no science behind it at the time. It was just more his intuition. And what I've written down here is, it makes sense for social animals that our purpose is always human. That's a completely different section. But yeah, Dunbar's experiment, basically, yeah, like you said, he had this factory. When it was more than 150, people started to get disjointed. It didn't run as smooth. And then he opened different factories. He was going to...
I mean, and it kind of, this is maybe a separate chapter, but he refers quite a lot to the circle of safety.
Yes.
And did you want to speak about that?
I wrote it down, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. No, so, and he was, basically, the way he explains it, because I think it's important, because when I look at my team, and you want people to feel safe, because the opposite of feeling safe is feeling threatened and in danger. And you don't want to go into a work environment where you feel threatened or in danger.
Yeah.
In danger, do you know what I'm saying? So it's not going to bring the best out in you. You want to feel safe. You know, that's what we all want to feel. So he breaks it down as like, by creating a circle of safety around the people in the organisation, leadership reduces the threats people feel inside the group, which frees them up to focus more time and energy to protect the organisation from the constant dangers outside, and seize big opportunities. And that just made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Because I'm thinking like, yes, because we are a team. You know, we're together. We have a shared goal. We all care about this. We don't want to have war within. You know, we don't want to have war within what we're doing, because we're fighting a battle out there. We're going up against other companies, other organisations, other this, other that. So if we're battling from the within, we're never gonna win. And you know, if sport's a great analogy, you know, if you've got a football team that they're all disjointed, they're not going to do very well, regardless of how. And we've seen examples over time of teams that are falling out and whatnot. So, and that also goes into the work world and even into family life.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I always there's so many different ways, because leadership for me isn't just leadership in the business world. You know, it definitely goes into family life as well. So yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question in a minute after this section. Basically, who is this book for? We'll touch on that in a second. But in terms of the circle of safety, we cannot tell people to trust us.
Nope.
They have to learn to grow and trust us. Our actions have to show that they can trust us.
Yes.
So what he's written down here is, we cannot instruct people to come up with big ideas, and we certainly can't demand that people cooperate. These are always results. The results of feeling safe, the results of feeling trusted among the people who we work with. So, yeah, we can't enforce that.
No.
People have to feel that. And I mean, there's so many great quotes on leadership in this book, which are very disjointed within my notes. I've got like some here, some there. But essentially, when people are inspired and when people feel valued, we will be willing to do for them. We will be willing to support them when we feel it too.
No, I think good leadership inspires that, because if you look at a leader, you see that person working hard and going to bat for you and sticking up for you and doing all that kind of stuff. It inspires that reciprocation of what, you know. Do you see what I mean? So then on the flip side, because he talks about weak leadership, and then weak leaders only extend the benefits to the circle of safety, to their fellow senior executives and the chosen few others. That is the first way to just get infighting, you know. If we work in an organisation and because we're friends or because we're family members, I'm treating you differently, everybody sees that. And then that's just going to get resentment and all the other negative things that come about it. So you've got to remain kind of fair and fair with how you're dishing out these sort of things, because people are watching. But yeah, man, really interesting. Interesting.
One of the quotes that I wanted to mention was, the only thing our leaders ever need to do is remember whom they serve, and it will be our honour and pleasure to serve them back. And yeah, I love that. I love that. And just another quote on leaders. Leaders are willing to sacrifice their own comfort for ours. Their time, their energy, their money, maybe even food off their plate.
Well, that's what we go with the title, isn't it?
Yeah, leaders eat last. Yeah. So back to the question, who is this book for?
This book is for if anyone that sees themselves as a leader, and wants to become a better leader. Yeah. At first, I was really thinking, because I know you always ask that question, so I was thinking, this book's for like CEOs and stuff, but it's actually not. if you're a leader and you want to be a leader, or you're interested in leadership and you want to improve your leadership skills, that's who this book is for.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think off the back of that, we can branch out in terms of what a leader is.
Yes.
And a leader doesn't just have to be...
What is a leader to you?
A leader is someone who sets the standard of... Yes, who's someone who sets the standard of what they want, you know. I don't know how to articulate it at the minute.
Do you think that people are born leaders, or do you think you can become a leader?
I think you can become a leader. I definitely think there's an element to growing up in certain environments or certain circumstances that encourage you to be a leader. For example, if you're a young child and someone makes you a captain of a sports team, that can motivate you and think, wow, I'm the leader here. That, you know, I'm the one who's they've been given the armband to motivate and encourage the rest of the team, which then you can take that on into later life, and you're like, do you know what I mean? It can help. So,
but then just a follow-on question from that: do you think, if you're using that analogy of a young, you know, a football team basically with a captain's armband, do you think you can still be a leader without that captain's armband?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, I'm just asking because, like I said, things like this interest me. It's really interesting because I also think, regarding, I used to think that, you know, people say, and I think it's like a misconception in my opinion. I've had a lot of conversations about this with people. I think some people maybe have more traits that lend themselves towards leadership. Yeah. So I might naturally just be a more confident person because maybe my mum and dad gave me a lot of love when I was younger and X, Y, Z. So I grew up thinking, you know, being confident. Yeah,
but more confident in what? Okay, because we can get down a whole rabbit hole because confidence isn't about... Confidence is specific things because you might be really confident in talking to people.
Yeah, no, let me go further. So let's say let's say I'm confident to go into a room and introduce myself to somebody, and I'm confident to speak to somebody and just say, what's your name, and vice versa, as a child. And my name's Chris or whatever. There might be another child who's maybe going through, who doesn't have what I have, so they're not able to be confident in that moment, but they can, as time goes on, they can actually learn to become a leader. They can learn, okay, these traits lend themselves to leadership, and I want to be a leader so I can improve and learn and educate myself on how to lead and then become a leader over time. So that's actually what I think. So I think some people have more, and that's just one example. I think even like your genetics, like if you look a certain way, people might just look to you for leadership because you might look big and strong. So they might, even though you might not feel as a leader, people might look to you as a leader. Yeah, okay. Do you see what I mean? So then if they're interacting with you in a certain way, that you might assume that role. Do you get what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
So, but the point I'm trying to make is, I think leaders can be made over time, and you can develop and learn and grow into leadership over time. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. So coming back to the point for me of who this book is for, is for leaders. So that can be in a working environment, it can be in a sporting environment, even in a family environment.
Definitely, not even. I think that's like on the same level, if not higher. Do you know what I mean? Family environment, of course. I mean, a family is important. It's just as important as business and sports, if not more important. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So of course, I think it kind of starts from there to some degree. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's who we think the book is for. So if you think you're a leader, or even if you want to learn the traits of leadership, I think it's a great read. There was one story that hit me deep.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you to maybe analyze it a little bit and see the message in this story, because in my head, the story hit me, but I'm not sure I haven't drilled down what the message of this story is. Okay. So the story is, the man, he goes to a talking engagement. He's got to speak in front of however many people. And the first, he goes there 2 years in a row, back to back. The first year, he gets picked up from the airport in a nice car. He gets taken to the venue. He is escorted through a private entrance to the back. They've given him a nice, what do they call it? Ceramic cup, with his coffee in it. And he basically get an A-class treatment. Yeah. And he goes and delivers his talk. Yeah. The following year, he goes and he doesn't get picked up from the airport. He has to book his own taxi. He has to find his way to the event.
Yeah.
He asks someone for coffee. They're like, oh yeah, there's some styrofoam cups over there. Like basically make your own coffee. And then he goes and delivers his talk.
Yeah, yeah.
And what it says in the book is all the perks, all the benefits and advantages you get for the rank or position you hold, they aren't meant for you.
Yeah.
They are meant for the role that you fill. And when you leave your role, they will give the ceramic cup to the person who replaces you because you only ever deserved a styrofoam cup. It's like, wow, that hit me. It's like, you only ever deserved a styrofoam cup because it's the role that you filled that they treated you like that rather than you.
There's two sides to that because you got the role because of you. So if you want to kind of play the advocate. But yeah, I mean, yeah, what did you want to go more on that? What did you think?
Yeah, maybe we could touch on it. I thought maybe, in that moment, because he was no longer whatever position he held, does that make him less important to the event organizer? It's other people's perception of him or how other people treat him because he's no longer that role. If he was maybe the leader or, they perceived him in, a great light, would they have given him the ceramic cup treatment again? Anyway, I've still been analysing what I meant from it. But when I read it, I was like, wow, what's the message here?
Yeah. So what do you actually think the message in that? Or you're still a bit
I'm still like, thinking it. But the point, I think the message for me is don't get caught up on your title.
Yeah, facts.
Like,
there you go.
It's not about your title. No. It's not about being a CEO.
Yeah.
It's about being you as a person.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the message.
That is the message.
Yeah.
That is the message because it doesn't, the title is just a title. You can still, look man, we talk about like integrity all the time and he talks about it a lot in this book and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Regardless of if you're like the top guy, I was trying to find, I've got it, but I can't find it. If you're the top guy or whoever you are, regardless of your role, you still are still you. So you act with integrity and accountability and all those sort of things, regardless of what title you're given. Because it's true, because that title has now been given away. And what would have been very easy for him to do, it would be like, well, boy, they didn't pick me up from that airport this time. They're not giving me that A-star treatment, so I'm not going to give them an A-star speech. For example, do you know what I mean? He could have just been like, oh, well, forget about it then. I'm going to meet you at your level. But what he's done, or what you should do in that situation, is maintain your standards. This all comes down to standards. Maintain your level. So, because he's right, it's not for you. It's not meant for you. It's meant for the position.
Yeah.
And then you're going to move along, and everything goes with time. And I think when people on the flip side, the danger side of that, and again, this when we go into that dopamine and addiction and stuff, because if someone's really tied up in their title, once that title goes, which inevitably it will go, they're now lost. And they don't have, I was the CEO of this, or I was the head teacher, or I was the captain, or I was the whatever it might be. I was the parent and my child needed me for everything and now they've left to go to university. Once that goes, you now start to search for other ways to get that dopamine hit or whatever you used to get. Yeah. And that's when it can become destructive. But yeah, it's all about, like with football. I mean, when I played football before, I wasn't the captain, but in my head I thought, you know what? Just because I don't have the armband, I'm still gonna. I'm captain. That's how I used to think in my mind. Like I'm captain. It doesn't like I'm still acting. I'm a leader. I'm not the captain, but I'm still a leader on the team. So regardless of captain's armband or not, I'm acting like a captain, as everybody should be doing. You see what I mean? That's what everybody. That was always my mentality. So it's like, and if you give me with or without the armband, it doesn't actually make a difference. So it's not like if I'm captain for a match and the captain comes back, he's been injured or whatnot, I'm not going to be like, oh man, I'm upset about it. I don't care. I'm just here to do my job. Yeah. I'm here to do my job. So yeah, man, I think that will affect people more that are really, so if he was the kind of person who got really wrapped up in his role and you see it all the time, get on a power trip, all that kind of stuff, it can be destructive, but that's the facts. It's not meant for you. Yeah. You're just holding it for now. Yeah. Look at, boxing is good. You're the champion now. Yeah. But give it time. Someone else can be the champion. But you can still carry yourself like a champion without the belt. Yes, absolutely. You can still carry yourself. So yeah, man. That's what I think about that.
I mean, there's so much that I want to talk to in this book. We're not going to get time, but you mentioned integrity. Yes. So I just want to touch on a story about the Marines. Yes. Because I like this in terms of a leadership role and how they attracted the team members that they wanted within their team. Yep. So they had a training course,
Yeah.
and I can't remember what the training activity was, but one of the trainee Marines, he fell asleep.
Yeah.
He fell asleep on the job.
Yeah.
And when there must have been cameras or something, but they knew that he fell asleep.
Yeah.
So when they come back to question him, did you fall asleep? He said no. He lied about it.
Yeah.
He said no. And then when it's like, well, no, we've got evidence. And then he was like backtracked. You know,
They actually
he's
asked him twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, they gave him 2 opportunities.
Gave him 2 opportunities, and yeah, he lied both times.
Yeah.
And they kicked him off
Yep.
the course,
Yep.
the Marines.
Yep.
But someone else lied about falling asleep. Someone else lied about falling asleep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah. Someone
okay.
else fell asleep.
Someone else fell
Yeah,
asleep.
yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
lie about.
yeah,
Someone else
yeah,
fell asleep.
Yeah.
And when they asked him, they said, you know, oh look, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I did fall asleep. And they didn't kick him off.
Yep.
Now, the act of falling asleep, that's not the issue.
Nope.
The issue is that the first person lied about it.
Yep.
The second person owned up and admitted it. Mistakes are absolutely fine.
Yes.
Don't lie about them.
Yep.
And that showed a character trait in the initial person. And the quote that it said was, how you do anything
Yes.
is how you do everything.
Yes.
And I just like that.
Yeah. With that, I mean, it's the foxhole test, like the foxhole mentality. So using the Marines as an example, they need to know that they can 100% trust everything you're saying. If life and death is on the line.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it's like, this person now, they go for more for character, which I think is, that's what, and character always trumps skills. Because you could have someone who's got amazing skills, but their character's terrible, so they lie, they cheat, they've got a poor work ethic, so they're not good to you. And as well, I mean, with that kind of, would they even want to build up their character? Maybe not. But if you're someone who doesn't have the skills, but their character is 10 out of 10, they can be taught.
Yeah.
They can learn. But they've still got that character, so where they wouldn't lie about it. So, and it's about trust, because if you're going to, like in this situation with the Marines, if you're going to war, literally, you need to know that the guy next to me, I can trust this guy with my life.
Yeah.
Because you're actually, one day you may be relying on this person to keep you alive.
Yeah.
And he needs to feel the same way about you. Because if you don't trust each other, again, we go back to that, the infighting and stuff like that. The circle of safety, thank you, the circle of safety, then it will spill out.
Yeah.
And then now you're questioning, is he, that second of questioning, that could end your life. So it's, of course I mean, it makes sense that they operate in that way, because you're dealing with really important
life and death situations. Life and death situations. Now, there were so many other stories, and I've, just jumped in with a couple of them there. Give me something that you...
The one which I liked was chapter 18. It was.
Okay.
And there was about the Captain David Marquet.
Yeah.
So he was a top submarine. I think he got the top rank in the US Navy. He's been training for a particular submarine. However, he got put on a different submarine. And this was interesting, and it was good. I think this person, this Captain David Marquet, he actually, I think, was a bit of a forward thinker. Yeah. Because, again, he's someone who realised it's the role and not him as a person, I think, or not. So what happened is, they were on a boat, he did a drill. They did a drill. And on the drill, he thought we didn't do that quick enough, or there wasn't enough pressure. So like a drill, like if the submarine has been hit by a missile or something like that. I don't know these things. So anyway, they did a drill, and he was like, okay, let's up the stakes. So the thing is, the boat, the submarine he was on previously had different functions. So he said to his person who's beneath him, said, okay, turn off the, do this. I don't know what it is. Do something. Do this. Like turn off the jets. Or something like that. Turn off the jets, because he wanted to increase the pressure on the guys that were doing it. So now he said that to the guy. The guy obviously has more experience on the boat, on the submarine. So I've said to Tyler, turn off the jets. You said, yes, sir. Cool. Turn off the jets. Nothing's happened. No one's panicking. I'm the only one who's thinking, what's going on? So at the end of it, he said, he's asked, why didn't that make a difference? The guy said, it doesn't, on this type of submarine, that doesn't make a difference. And he was like, why didn't you tell me that when I gave you the order? And he goes, because of your position, basically, I can't override. Have you got a note about it?
No, but he's basically he basically was. He didn't want to confront him about
Yes,
it. He didn't have the confidence to.
His position didn't even allow him to.
Yeah.
His position didn't allow him to. They have to follow the order regardless. So then after that, he looked back and he thought, okay, I actually don't know. So he could have just been arrogant about it or whatnot, but he realised, I need to learn this boat properly. So then he leaned on his people that were below him.
Yeah.
And he kind of developed a new kind of leadership style around that. And I think he's given a lot of speeches and talks about it. So so here he said, the goal of the leader is to give no orders. Leaders are there to provide direction and intent and allow others to figure out what to do and how to get there. So that is the kind of angle that he went on, and that was maybe my favourite chapter, or one of my favourite chapters, that part, because it made me really realise what my role is more so. It kind of drilled down, and it's like, you're here to guide and lead. That doesn't mean doing everything. That's not necessarily leadership. That's leading. Yeah. So this is the vision. Give them the vision and help them get there.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And it's a bit philosophical, but it's also quite simple.
Well, the ways he went around about doing it were really, for me, quite, inspiring and also very clever.
Yes, and collaborative.
And collaborative. He said, give authority to those closest to the information.
Yes.
So in that situation, if he had just give authority to that guy would have said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I think we should do, because I deal with this machine day in and day out. And one of the ways he changed the crew going forward to help, develop the trust and his team was he changed their vocabulary.
Yes.
So one of the things that they used to do was ask for permission to make changes on the ship. But of course, he doesn't have the information. So if they're asking him for permission, it's kind of irrelevant. There's a reason why they're asking him for permission. So instead of saying, Captain, permission to, he changed it to, Captain, I intend to, so that they took more ownership of their actions. So they knew that they would be responsible for whatever decision that they did. So now you're more responsible for the decision, which means you're less likely to make a mistake because the buck stops with you. Whereas in that previous example, he's like, well, Captain, you told me, I'm putting the blame on you. You told me about not to do it. So, changing the language, I thought was very clever.
That reminded me of Outliers.
Okay.
Actually, when I read that, about the planes. And the culture. I forget where they're from.
When
they kept crashing.
Yes.
I don't want to say the wrong country, so I'm not going to say the country. But where they kept...
I think it might have been South Korea. I can't remember. But we've got our book review on Outliers, so check that out. We won't touch on that now. Watch the book review on Outliers.
Cool.
There were lots of other gems in this book. He mentioned, a chapter on millennials. And
how did you feel about that chapter?
Well,
because it dawned on me, like, I was speaking to my wife last night when I was reading it. I said, wait a minute, we're millennials. Actually, I didn't realise until, because I think of Gen Z as millennials, sort of, whatever. So then I said, oh wait, he's actually talking about us.
Yes.
So how did you feel about that chapter?
I thought it was fine because I didn't feel like it related to me. The negative associations he made with with millennials. I didn't feel like I was being attacked. I thought, I can see what you mean. There are maybe some people I know that might feel that resemble the character traits that you're mentioning. But at the same time, that's not me. So I didn't feel attacked or anything. What about you?
I didn't feel attacked. I don't know if I enjoyed the chapter though. We spoke a lot about the positives. I think it would be fair for myself, anyway. I didn't like. This is what I didn't see the point of that part of the book.
Okay.
If I'm honest with you, I think after it lost me. It lost me in that bit. And it lost me.
I did see the point in that because
what was the point?
I think there's different expectations from the different generations. So I think it was important for him to explain that leading someone from the millennials era is different to leading someone from whatever the area above
Okay.
is. And there's a few examples that he gives.
Yes.
One example is our era is more entrepreneurial.
Yes.
We're less willing to stay in a job that we're unhappy
Yes.
in.
Yes.
And I actually can see older generation in my family or
same.
even people that I know that have stuck out jobs. They hate it. They've been there 20 years, 30 years, but they just stick it out. You know,
That's what it is, sort of thing,
resilience, or not even necessarily resilience, just
that's just the culture.
Just the culture.
They just do
Whereas the millennials is less inclined to do that. We're more willing to job.
What I did like.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't hate it. Like I said, it's. I think he laboured the point. That's more so what it was. I think he laboured the point. But what he did well, he speaks very much from like an American perspective because it's America. So he talks about America, not which was made it a bit harder to relate. But he speaks about when there was like huge layoffs and stuff like that. That obviously like millennials have lived through, and when you had the housing crash and all those sort of things, which redundancies, which kind of I think because when I was thinking about myself personally, I was like those things which would minimize my loyalty to employer is because I've seen in my life, in my personal life, people that my mum was working for how many years, redundancy. Do you see what I mean? I was working for a period of time, redundancy. So that's like, when I was working before, I was always like, well, I kind of know, I'm not under an illusion that I'm going to be here I'm going to retire here because I've seen it happen. And I've seen it happen, that's my own personal, that's anecdotal, but then I've seen it happen on a global phase as well. So what he did well was he kind of explained how was it Ronald Reagan when he laid off like how many people that used to work in the airplanes in the watch towers or something when planes. So he spoke about that sort of thing, and those were the kind of building blocks or foundations of how we've kind of got to now as millennials. So that was cool. I did not like the chapter. I just thought it was a bit laboured.
Okay. One of the things that was interesting on that chapter was talking about how some millennials have been accused of having entitled attitudes in comparison to the older generation. And there's a story that he mentioned which I could imagine happening.
Okay.
And it was Courtney, a young entry-level employee. She was hired as an assistant for like a film crew job. She was paid $20 an hour. Her job was to be on call and just run errands. Basically, she was a runner, go and collect coffee, go and collect lunch for the crew. But she was also a performing artist. So her employer encouraged her to like research casting calls, like when she wasn't doing anything, like when she wasn't needed, like, oh yeah, you may as well use this time. We don't need you right now. The employer was given the opportunity to, to do your own thing. Like, all right, we're only going to use you. You're here, so you're paid for the whole day. But just in the downtime, do some work of your own. And basically, she could do what she wanted in her own time. Now, after some time, she asked for a pay rise to $30 an hour. So the employer said to her, state your case. All right, cool. Why do you feel, you deserve a pay rise? And her attitude was, that's what I think I'm worth.
Oh, yeah.
And the bit that this made me laugh, because he was like, she was not invited back to work. And it was like, I think, maybe some of our generation, even maybe, I see this more as a younger generation when I look. Some, not all, some people feel entitled that, that's just what I'm worth. I deserve it because I'm a human being, not because I've actually put in the work. Whereas I think the older generation typically would be more like, okay, I need to earn that.
Yeah. And I think there's a sweet spot somewhere between the two ideologies, and I think because we're raised in a self-worth. Do you see what I mean? Like and it speaks. When I was in school, not so much. Like everyone gets a medal, but I saw that when I was working. I saw that kind of they don't want to isolate. They don't want to make people feel bad. Yeah. So I mean, and we're told, and I've seen it, and there's a lot of and everyone, and it's true. You are amazing. We've all got skill. We've all got talent. We're all blessed. All those sort of things, definitely. However, at the same time, it's like if you're trying to state your case in a working situation, like, oh, I deserve a pay rise. You need to come better than that.
Yeah.
You need to come better than that. You can't just be like, oh, because I'm great and because I'm this, and you are all of those things. But to be honest with you, so is everyone else.
Yeah.
So why do you deserve a pay rise? Yeah. Again, the same question comes back to it. So, and I do think that's more so of a generational thing, which I can relate to. You know, we have our self-worth, and to be fair, if you feel as though you're worth something, then you should leave, or you're right to ask for what you feel like you deserve, 100%. But there's two sides to the coin, because if you're not displaying that, it's one thing saying it, it's another thing displaying it and showing it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So again, I'm saying this from like as an employer, demonstrate value.
Yeah.
You have to, if you're looking at your, and it doesn't even, and it can even just be as simple as just doing your job properly.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not like you don't, going above and beyond, everyone appreciates it and we love it. But what we want, the minimum we want is do your job properly.
Yeah.
And you'll be even hard pressed to find people that do that and then still may feel entitled. So I can see, but I think there's a sweet spot in between there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Right. We're running out of time. Time has flown by. We haven't touched on
I knew that would be
half
the
the thing.
case, yeah.
Is there anything, one other thing that you want to touch on quickly before we go on to our difficulty and star rating?
I think when he talks, he talks about friends and friends matter. And again, you know, being in the hall, so he's got here, all leaders, in order to truly lead, need to walk the halls and spend time with people that they serve. So that's called like eyeball leadership. So it's like, and this is what he talks about, we're not going to get into politics, but he does mention, you know, politicians, the only time you see them, or when they want to make big waves, is when there's an election cycle coming up. And, you know, and again, it builds trust. If you're here and I see you on a regular basis and I see you around the community or whatnot, I can trust you. Versus if I never see you, but then I see you in a, you know, I don't see you, you're not leading. You're not leading me. You're doing your job. You're doing whatever, but you're not actually a leader. So then it's hard to respect you, and it's definitely it's even harder to trust you.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good in this book.
There's, off the back of that, I want to just quickly read something that he said, a story that he quickly said that made my jaw drop at the time.
Okay.
And like basically he got me, he fooled me in the book. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to read it to the. I'm going to say, I went on a date last week. Oh. We spent 7 hours together, and yeah, we're getting married. I was like, what? Yeah. So everyone's natural reaction is shocks, right? And basically, the point he's making is, what I missed out on that story was that they spent 7 hours together, they had a great date, and then he's getting married.
Yeah, it's fine.
And he's saying, I don't know the length of time it takes to build a connection, but we know it takes more than 7 hours.
Yeah.
And so it could be, you know, but we also know that it takes less than, 2 years to build a connection with someone. So he's like, there's a sweet spot depending on the people, but we know as humans that we can't expect to build a trustworthy team, on the first day of working together. These things take time. So leadership is not a quick scenario, it's an ongoing process. Yeah. And using that story, I think that just made me laugh, man. I was like, yeah, anyway.
It gets the point across. Because it's like, if someone said that to you, and I think he was talking about like with social media stuff. He goes in a lot about social media. I think definitely, look, if you're interested in leadership, and you're also interested in like working out how the body works or how the brain works more specifically, and how that can even benefit you as a person, because if you're more aware of what's happening in yourself, you can now moderate yourself, or you can lean into that. Like today, me and you, we trained this morning, and in the morning, you obviously, I was quite low, I was quite tired, I was quite whatnot, but I even knew, I said, all right, I feel like this now. I know by the end of the session, I was pumped. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So you can kind of engineer situations that, okay, I don't feel good. Let me go for a run maybe, or let me do something that's going to give me that dopamine, or get serotonin or whatnot. Yeah. So you can actually look at yourself in that sort of way. And then as well, you can moderate, okay, this doesn't make me feel good. Cortisol's must be going through me right now. It's not great. It's not a good thing. So I can, do you see what I mean? So it can kind of just make you a better person. Like literally, not like in a philosophical way. You can moderate yourself in a much better way. So
yeah, okay, right. Let's move on. Difficulty rating. How difficult was this book?
Oh, man, I struggled, man, to finish this book, man. And I don't know. I'll give it a 3. Not necessarily because of the languages and stuff like that, but more so. Like I said, I think there's a lot that could have been taken out. I've watched Simon Sinek a lot, so I know his style, and he does talk a lot. He's very anecdotal, and I don't mind anecdotes, but I kind of prefer. I don't love them at the same time, because I don't think I've got my views on them. But I found it quite hard to finish, man.
Yeah.
I started off really hot, really had me. Then it kind of lulled a bit. Then it kicked in again. I said, okay, I'm back. It's back. Then towards the end, it kind of just tailed off, man. I was quite happy to be finished.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Similar in terms of like it wasn't crazy difficult. The chapters weren't long, but there were times where it was a little bit of a slog. So for me, 2.5. Star rating.
Star rating. I've been toiling with this one. Because would I recommend this book? Yes. Did I love this book? I didn't love it. Did I hate it? I definitely didn't hate it. So 2.9.
Wow.
Yeah. 2.9. And that's because I just 2.9.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 2.9.
Yeah. Is that your lowest? No, that's definitely your lowest this year.
In a long time, yeah.
That's your lowest
in a long time. And that's kind of like, that 2.9 is kind of, it's not a 3. It's just missed out a 3. So 2.9.
Yeah, okay. For me, I was flirting between a 3.5 and a 4. There was so much gems in here, man. There were so many gems in this book. But yeah, I didn't love the read. But the value, there's so much value in this book.
Yeah, there is.
So 3.75.
Wow, okay. There's no whole numbers today, boy.
Yeah, 3.75. It just missed out on a 4, I think. Like you said, there were some bits could have been cut out, but yeah. Anyway, next month's book, we are going to Full Time to Fulfilled. Now, this is quite a niche book. I'll explain a bit more, but follow us on our book review journey. The link's in the description box.
This is the Power of Pages. We review books.
If you've enjoyed this book review,
you'll probably like this one too.
This is the Power of Pages, where we review books that ignite your mind,
elevate your life,
and drive your ambition.